Hi everybody, another midweek chat here. We got June 28th, Feast of St. Irenaeus of Lyon. Tomorrow is June 29th, Feast of Saints Peter and Paul. So we got some heavy hitters this week in our liturgical calendar. Can you tell where I am? Sadly, it's that hazy day with the smoke, the poor air quality here. Isn't that funny that Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois would have the worst air quality in the country? It's because I guess the Canadian fires and the wind currents. But so this is kind of a famous place for UW Eau Claire students. This is the Chippewa River behind me, and see the water flowing. I believe that's Putnam Creek, and it gets to that little ledge of rock, and then it drops over into the Chippewa River, and so they call it Little Niagara. It's kind of a fun term. So when the water is rushing a little more, it could be bigger, but sometimes it doesn't fall at all because the river's higher. But when I was in campus ministry here, we used to come. Sometimes we'd take for a student activity, we might go out and take a walk, or sometimes we'd take garbage bags, pick up some trash, and anyway, we'd come here at the end of the hour and say some prayers and head back. It's just a 5-10 minute walk from the Ecumenical Religious Center where we would start our journeys. Anyway, so I started this video and I got about 7 minutes into it and it stopped. And I thought, oh, I've been forgetting to delete my old videos because they take up so much memory on a phone, right? So that's good. So I'll not make the same mistakes maybe that I made in the first run. So I want to say a little bit about St. Irenaeus. So he is, as I mentioned at Mass, he was a major figure. I think he died around the year 200, born around 140, something like that. And he was known for writing these books called Against Heresies. So heresy is a bad way of thinking about God. So a heresy might be that Jesus wasn't really human, that he was just divine masquerading as a human being. That would be called a heresy. Or heresy might be on the other side. It might be that Jesus was just human. He wasn't really divine. And those are things they kind of hashed out and talked about and fought about. And Irenaeus' big adversary was the Gnostics. And their heresy, their wrong belief, was that creation is not a good thing. And we're spiritual beings, and we just have to try to help our spirits escape this nasty creation, our bodies, and to enter a more heavenly realm. There's a spiritual realm that isn't weighed down by stuff, by matter, by atoms and molecules. They probably didn't know what atoms and molecules were back then, but like creation is bad. It just weighs us down. There's a real negative view of sexuality. Just a lot of that stuff. And anyway, Irenaeus was really big on, Jesus came, he took on flesh, the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and human bodies can get into all kinds of trouble, and we can fall on temptations and not use our bodies well, but we can also glorify God with our bodies. We can love one another well and purely, and we can work and build things and use our minds, and we can, as children, we can jump around on the land and swim in a river and laugh and play, and all that stuff glorifies God. It gives thanks to our Creator. It affirms the goodness of God. So his big famous phrase is, I think I get this right in Latin, I might not, Gloria Deo Homo Vivens. So I think he wrote in Latin. So that's what he wrote. And the best translation that is most meaningful to me, I'm not a Latin scholar, so I don't know how accurate it is, but the glory of God is the human person fully alive. So what does that mean, the glory of God? Sometimes we hear we should glorify God, and I don't know if I have a real succinct definition for that. What the glory of God and God's fullness. Like if you're in your glory, you might be in your glory when you're tubing down the Chippewa River, or when if you're an artist, when you're creating art, you're in your glory. I like to think we're all in our glory when we're gathered around the altar on Sunday and at communion time, So he's saying God is in his glory when his creation is living as he wants them to, when they're fully alive with his life, And so that glorifies God. It heaps praise upon God and shows gratitude to God when we're fully alive. So it kind of begs the question, what is it to be fully alive? But I think it means to be living as God wants us to, We can be fully alive even when we're sick. If we're trying to experience sickness with faith, hope, and love in our hearts, It's part of life too. Anyway, so that's Saint Irenaeus, and I like it. It's a nice life-affirming phrase, isn't it? The glory of God is the human person fully alive. Like that. We get a lot of sometimes maybe negative views of religion that we're always about don't do this, don't do that, and it's nice to hear something positive when we're fully alive, when we're engaged, loving one another well, and using our gifts and talents. That's how we're supposed to be. Love it. Hey, we got another feast day coming up. I mentioned Peter and Paul tomorrow. That's big, but Monday, July 3rd, you know what it is. Yep, it's St. Thomas touching the wound of Christ. I won't believe unless I can put my hand in his side, put my fingers in his nail marks, right? So St. Thomas on July 3rd. So, we didn't get this in the bulletin, but I'd like to have Mass, because it's my feast day of my patron saint. Monday, we don't usually have Mass on Monday, so Monday at 9 o'clock, Monday in the morning. And on the 4th, we would not have Mass. Tuesday, so I'll buy donuts. And so you have that to look forward to. I don't think too many people will come. It's okay. I don't want to guilt you into coming, but a lot of people like to come to daily Mass. We don't usually have it on Monday. A lot of people like donuts. So I'll try to do that. I'm still kind of, I respect them. I don't mean to put down Dunkin' Donuts. Everybody loves their coffee and everything, but I think because maybe it's a good thing. I'm just crazy, self-centered, but I used to love their butternut donuts, and they don't make them anymore because they have nuts, and they don't want to. It's a good thing, isn't it? I shouldn't complain. If it keeps people from getting an allergic attack and dying, I guess I can live without my butternut donuts. But anyway, I used to like those. St. Thomas, do have some parish news coming up. Sorry, I got off on these saints right away, but here's another image. I'm missing 2 of my icons of St. Thomas. I don't know where they are. I don't think anyone took them. I just misplaced them, but sometimes I bring them out after Easter because this Thomas story touching the wounds of Christ is always the gospel reading for the Sunday after Easter, right? So sometimes I bring those icons out, take them to show the school children, and I put them somewhere else than where I took them from. Here's another image of St. Thomas. So there's no Christ in it, it's just Thomas, and you can see he's got like a I think they call it a compass. I don't know if anyone still uses those. When I was in, was it geometry class? We'd use those. You can draw a perfect circle with it, but designers used to use those. Looks like there's an axe and a T square leaning against that stump maybe. So he is also, besides, I'd call him the patron saint of those who struggle with faith a little bit. The doubt, the doubt. I won't believe unless I can see him and touch him. So he's the patron saint maybe of seekers. And I really want to affirm that too. Oh gosh, I read something in this. This is such a nice book. Jerry and Bonnie bought a whole bunch of copies and gave them out. I gladly received one. I don't subscribe to it, but a lot of people do. If you'd like to subscribe to this, the parish has a group subscription, and we'll just add your name to it, and you can pick it up each month. It's got the daily readings. It's got some beautiful reflections in it. A lot of really good writers in this. Give us this day. It's out of Collegeville, St. John's Abbey. But anyway, I won't read this whole thing, but there's a poem, as an example of what they have. There's a poem written by Romanus Melodus, who died in 560. And it's really, it's kind of a little different perspective. So a lot of the icons of Thomas are like this, right? And he's actually touching the wound. It never says in the scripture in John chapter 20 if he's touching the wound or not. He says, I won't believe unless I touch the wound. And then Jesus comes back and he's there. He says, go ahead, Thomas, touch my wounds. Put your finger in my hands. Don't persist in unbelieving, but believe. And then it just says, and Thomas said, my Lord and my God. It kind of makes most sense to me that he was embarrassed and he wouldn't actually try to touch Jesus' wounds. But most of the art, he is touching Jesus' wounds. It's certainly more of a evocative or tangible or dramatic way of looking at the story if he actually does. Well, there's beautiful bells playing over at the campus. But so I don't know, just common sense tells me he just was embarrassed and so he didn't touch. But I like when they say he did touch, because I had an iconographer that I purchased an icon of that from once, and I wanted to bring it because it was hand painted, but I couldn't find it. So the title is never Doubting Thomas. You never see Doubting Thomas as the title of the icon. It's always the belief of Thomas, the confession of faith of Thomas, because they focus on him saying, my Lord and my God. It's the most intense statement about Jesus in the whole of all the gospel writings. And so that's great. And the lesson there is sometimes the deepest faith comes from a period of questioning and being uncertain. So parents, don't give up hope. Sometimes your high school students or college students maybe give up on church and they don't seem too interested. And if you can kind of keep engaging them just with questions, and sometimes people come around. Christine's got quite an interesting conversion story. I don't know, conversion story, but faith journey story. Period of not being too interested in the church and then coming back to it. And sometimes that happens, and sometimes it's a period of questioning that you need just really good, patient, faithful, good companions to kind of shepherd you along the way there. Anyway, this iconographer said, sometimes it's called the Silaphysis. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. But it's like the Silaphysis of Thomas is the title of the icon. I said, what does that mean? And typically what it means is, the touching. You'll see it, the touching of Thomas. Thomas touching. So again, emphasizing that maybe he did touch the wounds of Christ. But he said in Greek, it's more of a scratching, probing the wounds of Jesus. Like he's really curious. He's really kind of taking a look. Is that really flesh? Which seems kind of yucky. but psychologically, I love it. He's really interested in probing. He's curious about the risen Christ. He's not going to just believe on someone's word. He wants to really experience it for himself. And I think that is good. I mean, we need faithful companions, people that inspire us, people we respect, and to hear them. But is that the woman at the well story that ends like, now we no longer believe just because of her word, because we've met him and we believe because of what we've seen and what we've experienced? So that's part of the spiritual journey, I think. People bring us along, but they can't make us believe. At some point, we have to gather enough experience and confidence ourselves to believe, So anyway, I love that. Dare I go on with another Thomas story? I don't know, I always flip ahead to get to Parish News, right? But so anyway, this one, he's a patron saint of architects. I'm like, what? Why is he a patron of architects? He was known to be like a builder, I guess, and I don't know where that came from. There must be some legends. So I did hear one, but it seems to post-date the idea that he was an architect. So he's famous for going to India, right? So all the apostles, St. James the Greater went to Spain. That's where his body, except his body without his head, is buried by tradition. His head is in Jerusalem, where he was beheaded, but they took his body to his beloved Spain, where he preached. St. Thomas, India. And apparently he challenged people to be faithful and to kind of chastity and marital fidelity, I think. And I think that, well, I think that was what really uncorked some of the guys in terms of their Christianity. And anyway, he was put to death by a spear by tradition. But before that, he was known as a builder, and he got there, and there was a king, and the king said, so can you help me? I said, well, I'm a builder. He goes, well, build me a great palace. And so Thomas takes all the money and says he'll build him a great palace. And he gives all the money away to the poor. He gives all the money away to the poor. And of course, time goes by, and the king doesn't see any palace. And he finally is really enraged against Thomas and says, you're going to build me a palace. I don't see a thing. And where's my money at work? And Thomas says, well, I'm building you a palace. It's just not in this world. My Father, Jesus' Father in heaven, has many mansions, and I'm building a mansion for you with your money, doing the good works, helping the poor here on earth. And I don't know if he, I suppose the story is a little different as it's told, but maybe even put him to death. He was so mad at that explanation. He wanted a real palace, not a heavenly palace. So, but then apparently, I know, it's like his brother had a near-death experience or something. Like he saw the netherworlds and he came back, and while he was observing the afterlife, he saw this palace that he knew was his brother, the king's palace. So he came back and he told him, I don't know if it was in a dream or he came back to, I don't remember, but somehow the king found out that there really was a palace for him in heaven, and that's what Thomas had done. So he didn't kill him, he thanked him. So Thomas the builder. Anyway, a lot of stuff on Thomas. You can tell I'm kind of excited. We'll have Mass on Monday. Let's see. Oh, I was going to read you this. So here's a little poem from that Romulus from the 500s. This is assuming Thomas put his hand in the wound of Christ. Huh? Who protected the hand of the disciple then, that it was not melted when he approached the fiery side of the Lord? Who gave it daring and strength to probe, right? To probe the flaming bone? Certainly, the side was examined. For unless the side had supplied abundant power, how could a right hand of clay have touched the sufferings which had shaken? What is above and what is below? So, how could a right hand of clay, Thomas's hand, have touched the sufferings which had shaken what is above and what is below, the death of Christ? It was grace itself that was given to Thomas by Christ to touch his side and to cry out, my Lord and my God. It's kind of a nice poetic thing from like 1,500 years ago. It was just great. And then he compares the Thomas touching the side of Christ to the burning bush. So Thomas could touch, there's that, like, no man sees the face of God and lives, from the Old Testament. How could Thomas actually touch the inside of Christ and survive, if not protected by God's grace? And he compared it to the burning bush that was burning but not consumed. Thomas's hand survived. I thought it was, not sure what it all means, but it's evocative to me. Hey, this morning we had, we got to meet Michael Ann and Mike Mortallone. They live in Britt, Minnesota, up there in the Iron Range now. And Michael Ann was a teacher at St. James School back in the day. And gosh, I forget if they said Michael was on pastoral. Anyway, they're a big part of St. James Parish. They moved into the parish in 1970 and moved away, retired some years ago, maybe 15 years ago or something. And they came and joined us for Mass. And they're always in touch with us through the video Mass every Saturday. They say that when I start Mass and I ask if there are any visitors here, they always say in their living room, we're from Britt, and they wave, but we've never. So maybe this Saturday we can acknowledge them if I remember. It's hard remembering stuff, isn't it? Anyway, it was fun to see them. So let's do some Sunshine Days, our vacation Bible school. Today we had a great event, a youth event, the tie-dye t-shirts. I put a picture up on the Parish Facebook page. Kelly and Beth were there, and several of our youth, made some white. They had a white t-shirt and different tie-dyes. And some of them you can have. you don't want to stereotype by gender, but a lot of the boys, but their shirts just look like brown. They were brown, like they didn't kind of do it right, like all the colors mixed together. And then some of the girls, they have nice lines of red and green and yellow. So I didn't look too closely, but brown's nice. It's nice to have a brown shirt on hand. There's in the works to have a night, St. James night at the Eau Claire Express game, fan deck. So I said, do it when the pastor's in town, because I'll be gone 10 days in July. So hopefully we can do it at the time, and more information forthwith. But Sunshine Days we have 42 children registered to partake in Sunshine Days, and you can still take some more if you want to. They're planning on 50. So it's 4 days. I don't know the hours. Is it 10 to 2, something like that? I don't know, 10 to 1. It's like a vacation Bible school. And you have to get the hours more reliably conveyed to you by somebody. And food truck. Me and Dan Sullivan and me. M.I., not me. I don't have a food truck, but me does. Me, Sullivan, and Dan are going to bring their food truck. And they're going to serve some food out of it, and the kids will see it. Make some connections, like give us this day our daily bread and thank God for food. But they'll get to see what a real food truck's like. It's kind of neat. And we need some volunteers too. Some are signing up. And Kelly puts out emails to our youth and our high school students, and she always gets a response. She said she picked up 5-6 volunteers yesterday. So might be getting some more of those. So our school building is being worked on. If you've been around, there's a lot of big machineries from, what's the name of the company? Restoration Corporation. Building Restoration Corporation out of the Twin Cities. And it's a big job. And they'll be here another month, I think, working on the bad mortar and bad limestone stuff around the windows that was letting water in. And so we'll have a good looking school on the outside, but you might not even notice it. But it costs over $320,000, like $326,000 or something. So just sort of had to be done if we want to maintain our building. And then the inside, we're going to remember what we did for church? Was it last year or 2 years ago? We ground up the terrazzo floor, all the old wax and all that stuff, and polished it, and looks really great. We're going to do that for the school hallways this summer, and the steps going downstairs. So that'll be good. So inside and out, have a new look. We do have 3. Thanks for your prayers. I don't think I emphasized enough. A few times I asked people to pray that we'd have applications for our first grade teacher position and our principal position, which had no applications. And now I just got alerted today that there are 3 viable people that have applied for the principal job at St. James Elementary, part of Regis Catholic Schools. So thanks for your prayers, or if you haven't, you can pray now that we can land one of those as a good leader for our site, our elementary site for Regis Catholic Schools. I think we're still hoping to get applicants for first grade, but maybe there was applications, I'm not sure. Parish office will be closed on July 4th. Summerfest is coming up. Sponsorships are available. We started doing sponsor. You can sponsor the band. You can sponsor the beer tent. You can sponsor the chicken dinner. It's just one way to kind of give a lump sum from your organization or as an individual to sponsor something. Car show, kids games, something like that. It'd be great. Really helps us turn a profit. And of course, the raffle tickets are available. If you didn't hear, you can get the big ones that are like $5 a piece, or 5 for $20, I think. And I think the grand prize drawing is like $2,000, something like that. I should know exactly. Or you can get a $100 ticket and only sell 200 of them, and the chances are bigger, and there's a prize of a couple $1,000s as well. So they're trying both methods. See which one we tried the $100 ticket just once and didn't take real well, but we thought maybe because it was new, so we tried again. St. James Feast Day. We're talking about St. Thomas for 15 minutes today. St. James will be on July 25th, and I prevailed. Thanks, women of the PCCW, for moving your root beer float. They try to make root beer floats around the Feast of St. James, and they're going to do it on the 22nd and 23rd. Well, I'm going to be gone on the 22nd and 23rd. So I begged using the power of the chat to ask them to if they could do it the next weekend instead when I'm back, and they agreed. So I'm glad for that. Thank you. Grouper floats are good. So maybe that's about it. Not really too much. It's summer, not too much. I hope you enjoy some fireworks if you like that. The west side of Eau Claire around St. James, I'll tell you what, I've never lived anywhere that was so into fireworks. Like, I'm just on my way biking here this afternoon, bing, pop, 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 pop. So people are starting to get in the mood. Hope there's no injuries or no fires started. But it's coming up, July 4th. We pray for our country, that we might live up to our ideals, that all people might be free. We respect the life of all, unborn through the elderly, through those with disabilities, the poor, immigrants. We might really be a nation that cares for each other, wants everybody to succeed. So, anyway, I guess that's it. That's it for the chat. I'll let you take this in a little bit. And maybe right before I go, I'll pick it up so you can look upstream a little. It's kind of a beautiful scene there too. So, all right, loving God, we thank you for today. We thank you for the saints. We thank you for Saint Irenaeus and his sharp mind, affirming the goodness of creation. Now we can be fully alive in you. We thank you for St. Thomas and his pursuit of faith, his willingness to question, his willingness then to declare you as his Lord and God. We thank you for Saints Peter and Paul tomorrow and the way they led the early church in its earliest days. Through their intercession, may we be strong as church and lead people to you. Lord, help us to find our own way to holiness. Help us glorify you. Help us find how we should be fully alive in you, using the gifts that you gave us to shine with your light, to live in deep communion with you and joyful communion with each other. Amen. So, here, just take a look at this. Just turn this to the right. See? So that white building above the bridge, that's the Ecumenical Religious Center where the Newman Parish is. And the Hibbard Hall, I guess, that red behind it. So, well, God bless you, everybody. Happy July when it comes in 2 days.